His Excellency, Dean of School of Postgraduate Studies Diponegoro University, Dr. Arbi Sularto, SHM.
His Excellency, Vice Dean 1 of School of Postgraduate Studies, Diponegoro University, Professor Dr. Hadianto, MSc.
Her Excellency, Vice Dean 2 of School of Postgraduate Studies, Diponegoro University, Professor Dr. Tri Retnaningsi Suprabawati, MFSc.
Honorable keynote speakers,
Academic Society of School of Postgraduate Studies, Diponegoro University,
distinguished participants,
ladies and gentlemen.
good morning and welcome back to the 7th International Conference on Energy, Environment, Epidemiology, and Information System 2022.
Organized by School of Postgraduate Studies Diponegoro University. With us,
Alif Lukman Wijaya
and Philomena Larasati as the Master of Ceremony.
The theme of the 7th ICENIS 2022 is Reconciliation of Energy, Environment, Health, and Digital Information after the COVID-19 pandemic for global prosperity.
Ladies and gentlemen, as informed yesterday, this morning we're entering the main part of plenary session. We will hear presentations from our speakers and followed by discussions with our speakers.
We gladly introduce you speakers for today's plenary session, including
1. Professor Dr. Lee Lam Hong from Quest International University, Malaysia.
2. Dr. ATPG van Eenslenhoven, Lecturer of Southeast Asian Linguistics from Leiden University Institute for Area Studies, Netherlands.
3. Professor Dr. Tri Retnaningsi Suprabawati, MFSc from School of Postgraduate Studies, Undip, Indonesia.
And also joining with us today, Dr. Hartuti Purnaweni, MPA, as our moderator from School of Postgraduate Studies, Diponegoro University. Now, without further ado, to start the session, we may pass the event to Dr. Hartuti Purnaweni. Please, the time is yours.
Assalamualaikum. Good morning to everyone who has been joining this international conference on energy, environment, epidemiology, and information systems. 2022. It's very nice occasion for us to meet here and to share ideas on many topics which will be presented by our honored speakers. And it's based on the fact that the coronavirus disease or COVID-19 pandemic is affecting every aspect of human lives in all aspects. So the activities to control the spread of the virus and the slowdown of the economic activities have significant effects on the environment. And that's why this is the focus of this conference. So we would like to invite our speakers to present their papers. And we are very happy here to have 3 speakers, which will present their papers and one after another. And the first one will be presented by Professor Dr. Lee Lam Hong. Are you ready, Professor?
Hi, good morning, Dr. Hatuti.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, nice to see you again.
Yeah, you are very you look very healthy and happy this morning, right?
Yeah, of course, yes.
We met yesterday, right?
Yeah, we met 2 days ago on Monday.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that you will give us very interesting many insights, of your research and maybe your, of course, your knowledge on your field of subjects. Yeah.
Sure. Definitely. So actually, it is my honor for giving this opportunity to share some of my thoughts and interest in the area of how to maintain the sustainability of the world to the audience today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, thanks to the organizer for giving me this chance. Actually.
Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah.
that the topic will be very interesting.
Yep.
And
Hopefully. Yeah.
entitled Industry 5.0, the enabler of a sustainable era, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I hope that you could present your,
Sure.
but please be not to be too fast to speak, yeah? So
Yeah.
all
Of course. Yes. I'll try my best to keep the
the
pace.
rhythm of your presentation. Okay, thank you very much. Time is yours. Oh,
All
sorry.
right. Thank you.
Sorry, I will introduce you first. Yeah, Professor Lee Lam Hong got his Bachelor of in Computer Science, honorable first class honors degree. That's very interesting. Yeah, at the University Putra Malaysia, and then he got his PhD, Doctor of Philosophy in Computer Science at the University of Nottingham, right?
Yes. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sure that you have many experience to share to our audience right now.
Hopefully. Yes. All right. So, can you see my presentation slide in a full screen mode? I'm just not sure whether everything is in order.
Yeah, the PPT. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it in a full screen mode?
You will operate it yourself, or we are going to help you?
No, I think I can operate. So this is the front cover slides of my presentation, and then let me switch to slide number 2. Is it okay?
Okay. Okay. Sure.
Right. Okay. Right. All right. So yeah, once again, thanks to Dr. Hatuti and also the Masters of Ceremony. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Again, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share with you one of the research topic which is of my great interest. Okay, we call it the fifth industry revolution, which is also known as Industry 5.0, as you can see from the title of the talk here. So yeah, recently Industry 5.0 has gained its popularity, and I think most of us heard about Industry 4.0. I think back in the past decades, right? I mean, since a few 10 years ago. So in the recent few years ago, Industry 5.0 has been introduced. And then the main objective of Industry 5.0 is to achieve a better productivity and sustainability of various industry sectors. So to achieve this goal, the approach used by Industry 5.0 framework is bringing modern computing and data technology, not just working by themselves, because previously we have seen a lot of frameworks that would like to replace human labor with computers and machines. But for this Industry 5.0, right, people start to look into how to put computers and machines to work together with human intelligence, creativity, and innovation that perhaps will lead to sustainability. Right. Okay, so before we look into Industry 5.0 in detail, so let us look into some of the backgrounds of the previous industry revolution, which is the Industry 4.0. So back in 2011, 11 years ago, so Industry 4.0 was introduced with the main objective to maximize the efficiency and productivity of various industries. So to achieve this, Industry 4.0 promotes the replacement of human labor with smart machines, computers, and digital technologies in various operations of the industry. However, along the time while people are focusing on the implementation of Industry 4.0 framework, we notice one thing. We realize that we have overlooked an important aspect, that is the sustainability of computerization and digitalization of the technology for a better future. Okay, and no doubt, there's no argument that the machine and computers have better physical strength, accuracy, and consistency compared to human beings. However, machine and computers do not have creativity and innovation, and also they are not flexible to adapt to the changing environment. So to make the process and operation of the industry better and better, and from time to time, and in other words, to achieve sustainability, creativity and innovation are some of the key factors. So in view of that, in recent years, people start to look into introducing human hands and minds back to the production floor to work together with smart machine and computers. So this can create a more productive, more efficient, more harmonious, and of course, more sustainable framework to the industry. So by putting together the accuracy, the consistency, and the durability of modern computers and smart machines, together with the cognitive thinking capability, creativity, flexibility, innovation of human intelligence, we believe a more sustainable ecosystem in the industry can be developed, and this is the objective of the latest industry revolution, okay, the Industry 5.0. All right, so in fact, Industry 5.0 does not come with the purpose to replace Industry 4.0. It is not to say that Industry 4.0 is no more relevant, it's obsolete, and we want to introduce the new Industry Revolution framework to it. But Industry 5.0 is mainly to complement and extend Industry 4.0. So Industry 5.0 returns human creativity, innovation, and flexibility to the groundwork and framework laid by Industry 4.0 in order to facilitate the accuracy, the consistency, and the physical strength of the computers, robots, and smart machines. As you can see from this diagram here, fundamentally, the framework of Industry 4.0 and Industry 5.0 are very similar. Right? They both consist of a few core technologies, or we name them as the pillars of the framework. As you can see here, the core technology of Industry 4.0 are very focused on computing power and, of course, digitalization. Industry 5.0, on the other hand, are aiming to introduce the latest edge-cutting technology and also human hands and mind back into the earlier framework. For example, instead of using autonomous robots in Industry 4.0, Industry 5.0 introduced collaborative robots, or we name it as cobot, and exoskeleton to the framework. While Industry 4.0 concerned about cybersecurity alone, Industry 5.0 adds cyber law to make the system more reliable and ethical to operate. So Industry 4.0 leverage on big data to power the system. Industry 5.0, on the other hand, extract the insight, the key patterns, and the properties of the data, or we call them as the 5 Vs, which are velocity, or you can name it as speed of the data transmission, V number 1, and V number 2 would be the volume or amount of data. V number 3 is value, and V number 4 will be variety, and the V number 5 will be veracity, or the correctness of the data. So with all the insights and the key patterns of the data, this definitely will make the data more efficient to be used in a lot of smart systems. Apart from that, instead of using augmented reality, 3D printing, and cloud computing in Industry 4.0, and as we know that these technology, they has been introduced quite some time back in the past decades. And nowadays, Industry 5.0 utilizes more advanced technologies such as mixed reality, 4D printing, and high-speed mobile networks to ensure high productivity and, again, sustainability. All right, so that is all I would like to share about the general overview of the Industry 5.0. As the theme of this event is about similarity, and please allow me to specifically look into how to maintain the sustainability for human beings and, of course, other living creatures to live on this planet. All right, so in view of that, I believe food security is one of the very important aspects. All right, so to ensure food security, one of the areas to focus is on the production of the raw material output, which is agriculture. So therefore, let us look into how does the implementation of Industry 5.0 can help in the productivity, the efficiency, and again, come back to the most important aspect, the sustainability of agriculture industry. All right, so if you can look from this slides here, okay, the charts and then also the diagrams, the illustration, So we cannot deny that our world now is suffering from food crisis. So even though food security issue is still not in a very crucial and critical stage yet in most of the countries, but it is quite clear that we are moving towards a situation which we will be having problems in getting good quality and sufficient quantity of food. And also, the growth in agro-food production just cannot cope with the growth of human population. And this has become more serious and more challenging when the world develops, because many agricultural lands have been converted into commercial and industry purposes. So besides this, climate change due to global warming and also environmental pollution, natural disaster, and also recently, I am not sure whether I should say this, the political conflict between some of the countries also bring negative impacts to the global food production and supply chain. Okay, right. So yeah, this is another issue that will greatly affect the sustainability of our mother nature. So the pollution. So talking about pollution, the conventional ways of farming has caused a lot of issues to the environment. This situation can be seen especially in developing and underdeveloped countries. In order to make agriculture highly profitable, farmers who are irresponsible to the environment have used the land inappropriately for agriculture activities. So they cleared the jungle to plant crops and cause deforestation. They clear the hill slope to plant crops and cause landslides. And they burn the field to remove the plants that have been harvested and cause air pollution. Besides this, excessive use of fertilizer, pesticide, and inappropriate discharge of untreated waste from the farm into the source of water, into the air, or onto the land, and all this cause serious environmental pollution. Therefore, it is very critical for us to address these issues before it is too late. So apart from creating public awareness to protect the environment, another way is to use technology to make the production process more efficient and environmental friendly. All right, so Industry 5.0 technologies can be implemented in the entire food supply chain, from the production of food or farming, transportation, processing, packaging, distribution, sales, even food preparation, even dining. So at least one of the Industry 5.0 technology somehow plays a role in this process. So today, let's focus on farming alone. So Industry 5.0 can help farmers to maximize the productivity and quality of agriculture and reduce the operational costs, and hence maximize farmer profitability. And it can also protect the environment by having proper planning of land usage, clearing the field, the appropriate use of fertilizer and pesticide, irrigation, until harvesting. So all this help in making farming more sustainable. All right, so to make farming more productive, efficient, environmental friendly, and sustainable, so it is all based on human creativity and innovation. And that is why we need to return of human hands and minds back into the production floor to maximize the performance and the potential of the machines. All right, so we need to bear with the rule of thumbs and also the fundamental principle of this technology and apply them wherever it's applicable, and this will definitely make farming activity better. Okay, so let me share with you some of my project experience which is related to Industry 5.0. We have been working on several farming projects here in Malaysia. So what we do is we collect data from the farming environment, such as the soil parameters, the ambience parameters, and then the growth and health condition of the plants using various sensors and cameras. So these data are then sent to the cloud server for storing, processing, and analyzing. And at the moment, we do not have a very sophisticated AI model which can make good decisions for farming activities. For example, how to apply the good amount of fertilizer and pesticide to the plant, and then how to make the environment more suitable for the plants to grow. So at current stage, we do not have a good AI model that can help in that context. And that is one of the reasons why the Industry 4.0, which try to replace human with machine, are unable to work well in this context. And therefore, we need to introduce the intervention of human intelligence and experience back into the system for a better output. So, of course, we would also apply a very basic AI decision-making model in our system with some basic knowledge about the growing condition of the targeted plants in our project. So to make the system better, the decision-making model is facilitated by manual input from the human expert from time to time. All right, so this perhaps can make the system be able to improve its capability with the human inputs, and then based on its original knowledge, then after going through some reasoning process, then new knowledge can be generated. All right. So the goal of our project is to create a suitable condition for the plants to grow. With the additional help from the human expert, we can even make the condition not just suitable, but optimum for the plants to grow. All right. So due to the time constraint, I think I will briefly go through the following slides. Okay, so let me share with you. This is one of our field trial in Malaysia, one of our smart farming projects. So this is a greenhouse. So we apply technology such as IoT, cloud computing, and then intelligent dashboard, and then also some decision making and how to say some AI decision making approach to facilitate the farming process. So this is another field trial. All right. So it is a vanilla farm in Penang. So this one we even include the voice control, okay, to activate the actuators of the farm, for example, the water pump, the ventilators, and then apart from gathering information, we also have voice control. So the main goal of this is to make the system ready for social what do you call this? I think we all heard about Internet of Things, right? So this is going to get the system ready for a new technology called social web of things, in which the server and devices, sensor and actuators can communicate among themselves, and also with the social media platform used by human beings. And that is how we introduce the human intervention into the system. All right. So we also implement our smart farming approach in aquaponic farm. We also develop computer vision and machine learning to grade the fruit ripeness, and also to detect pests and plant disease. And also we have developed some systems to be used by not only just by the industry players, but also by the consumers to identify fruits and grade fruits. All right. Okay. So now look into some of the technologies which can be applicable in agriculture. So cobot. All right, cobot can be used in a few areas in farming. So even though robots, or so-called the autonomous robot, can be very precise and accurate, but they are very difficult and expensive to set up and configure. And they are not flexible to adapt to new and changing environment. And therefore, cobot would be a better choice or in giving human a helping hand in carrying out various farming activities, such as plowing the field, mowing or cutting the grass, planting the seed into the soil, spraying the pesticide at a precise point and accurate amount, harvesting the yield, plucking the fruits, and so on and so forth. So this can greatly reduce human labor and increase the efficiency of robot in the process. All right, so simulation. All right, this is also applicable in agriculture. By using real-life data from the farm, like what we have been collecting from our farm and projects, when the amount of data is sufficient, and of course with the appropriate knowledge and expertise from the human, we can develop various simulations. All right, these simulations can help farmers in predicting the potential performance and risks in the real-world environment. So this can be achieved by running some of the tests virtually, not necessarily to be in a physical environment. So this will help in reducing the risk and cost to do the experiments and tests in the real world. And definitely this will result to better decision making for the farming activities. All right, so additive manufacturing, or better known as 3D printing, can help farmers to construct parts and equipment and machineries and tools for the activities, and especially when these parts and tools are specialized and needed in a very small quantity, right? And therefore, we cannot have a mass production to do it because it will be not cost effective. Therefore, we can use 3D printing to achieve that. All right, so this can also help the farmer in getting parts and equipment for designing and building prototypes for new farming approaches. All right, even though conventional 3D printing is very helpful in creating parts and tools, all right, the more advanced 4D printing, okay, that which has been introduced in recent years, it is even more useful, okay, and flexible to be used to create parts and objects which the structure can transform over the external conditions, for example, temperature, humidity, light density, and time. All right, so I think most of us here heard about virtual reality and augmented reality, right? So this technology has been widely implemented and used in many sectors. For example, education, healthcare, entertainment, and gaming. Now, there is a latest technology called mixed reality, which puts together real-world physical objects and also virtual objects into a computer-generated environment. So this technology can provide more interactive data visualization and facilities control mechanism to the farmer. It can also provide better and safer approach and experience for farmers to learn and get familiar with new equipment and tools through an environment which merge the physical and virtual world together. All right. So besides this, if the farmer are interested to venture into additional business model, for example, agro-tourism, okay, so this technology can provide a better and more informative visiting experience to the tourists. Okay, yeah. All right, so of course, agriculture is not just limited to growing plants. So it also involves livestock. So Industry 5.0 in livestock farming and it's applicable as well. So for example, we can use various sensors and cameras in a more technical term or more appropriate term is the Internet of Things and computer vision technology to monitor the condition and behavior of the animal. And then after collecting all those data related to the condition and behavior of the livestock, we can send those data to the server, to the cloud server for analysis. And of course, that will generate the decision for the farming process. And when the decision has been generated, human or robot can take necessary action either individually or together to make the farming activities a more successful one. And of course, most importantly, come back to the theme of this conference, a more sustainable one. All right, so what we have seen so far is basically the first few stages in the entire supply chain of food production industry. So with Industry 5.0, we can definitely make the entire process and operation better in terms of increasing the quality and quantity, lower down the cost and risks, and in all say, make the operation more sustainable. So in the later stage of the supply chain, such as warehousing, logistics, distribution, retail, sales, consumer feedback, and etc., and definitely Industry 5.0 can make all these sectors in the entire supply chain a better one. So it is always up to our imagination, creativity, innovation, and of course, hard work, okay, to materialize this intelligence of both machine intelligence and also human intelligence into all the aspects to make our world a better one. And also, let's recall on the pollution issue that we have seen just now. So we try not to compromise on the environment while we are generating a better productivity and better efficiency for our operations and also our process. All right. So in conclusion, we can foresee that, okay, with the collaboration between human and machines in various aspects, this will be the key of success in the few decades later, and of course, in the future. All right, so human and machine collaboration is targeting to create a blueprint, a new blueprint that the industry must follow. So in order to achieve a sustainable and harmonious environment, human and machine must work together. All right. So with the new framework, it can optimize the productivity of the industry from farming to manufacturing. And at the same time, we try to minimize the risk and threats to the environment and the well-being of mankind. And in all say, we would like to maintain the sustainability of the living of mankind and also the living creature to live peacefully on this earth. Right. And yeah, with that, thank you so much. That's all for my presentation. If you have any comments, feel free to feedback to me. Thank you so much. Over to you, Dr. Hartati.
Okay, thank you very much for Professor Lee Lam Hong, who has been given very nice presentation. Yeah, this is a combination of knowledge on information technology and environment, which is the focus of this international conference. Professor Hong has presented that the industrial revolutions have successfully transformed the world economy by increasing the productivity and efficiency of various industries. And he has given various examples of one of the biggest challenges of human being right now, which is a food crisis, and which will be enhanced or the more serious in this era of many of environmental phenomena, which is like global warming and things like that. So human beings are facing various challenges in food crisis, in which food shortage will be will happen, yeah, or is happening right now in many countries in the world, in the various continents, which affect the global food production. And added with the problems of agricultural pollutions. Now, Professor Hong then presented the benefit of technology to solve this problem in terms of production of agricultural things. And he has given many examples on the project on the greenhouse to grow vegetables and various farm products, and then to use computer vision and machine learning for fruit identification and grading, and then using robot for in agriculture. Very interesting. Yeah, many applications of robotic, which are enabled to increase the food production, and also simulation in agriculture. Not only agriculture, but also the benefit of industrial revolution of 5.0 can be also found in the livestock. Yeah, very interesting with livestock, because then the technology could be used to monitor the animal behavior. Yeah, so the livestock farming will be more efficient and then more productive. Yeah, in that field. And also, besides agriculture and livestock, the benefit of Industrial Revolutions 5.0 could also be used in the supply chain. Yeah, and this Industrial Revolution 5.0 is very beneficial and is hoped to yield many benefits for human being, because this is the advancement of Industrial Revolutions of 4.0. But also which introduces the return of human hands and minds into the framework. And I think this is very interesting, yeah, because we as human beings, we have emotions, yeah. We have emotions, we have many feelings, yeah, things like that. And machine is something which doesn't have things like that. So, and the conclusion, Professor Hong concludes that the machine and human must work together. And this is very important to ensure a sustainable and harmonious future. Yeah, and because a human being depends on the sustainability of food and other production, and this is the benefit of the Industrial Revolution of 5.0. Thank you very much for the very interesting presentation, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you.
We
Thank
are
you.
going to have questions and answers after. Yeah, not one by one, but after the Bu Nani, is it Pak Budi, this is the question and answer is right after this or after the three presenters? After three presenters. Okay.
Sure. No problem.
Yeah, so please be patient to wait. Yeah, until
No problem. No problem. All right.
to other people. And then now we invite Dr. ATPG van Engelenhoven. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. And he is not here in this postgraduate building, but he is going to join us through video. Yeah, through video. But I have his CV, so I'm going to read about his CV. Dr. Arno van Engelenhoven was born in 1962 in Halsteren, the Netherlands, as the only child of a Dutch father and a Southwest Moluccan mother. So he has Indonesian blood then. Since 1995, Van Engelenhoven holds a PhD in linguistics from Leiden University, where he also took a master degree in comparative linguistics. Besides Indonesian language, he also teaches descriptive Austronesian linguistics and linguistic anthropology at his alma mater. Van Engelenhoven has written extensively on several linguistic and anthropological linguistic issues in Indonesia, East Timor, and among Moluccan migrants in the Netherlands. And his research encompasses on the oral traditions, language and cognition, descriptive linguistics, and historical linguistics. So it will be very interesting to enjoy his presentation, which is entitled Archiving Traditional Knowledge After the COVID Pandemic in Nusantara, the case of Makufa. Makufa is a moribund language of Timor-Leste. Yeah. Oh, okay. So Dr. Engelenhoven, are you ready? Okay. Now our staff is going to present the video of his presentation. Okay, please proceed.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Om Swastiastu. Namo Buddhaya Shalom Aleichem. Salam sejahtera pada kita semua.
Salam sejahtera juga.
My name is Arno van Engelenhoven. I teach at Leiden University, Southeast Asian linguistics, and I'm invited to discuss with you archiving and recording of folklore after COVID-19. In order to do that, I have to share my screen with you, which I will do right now. Right. There we go.
Yes, we got it.
And then we'll just proceed. Okay. This is an international conference, and therefore I will speak in English. Later on, if you have questions, it's okay if you want to do that in Indonesian as well. So first of all, we need to talk about structure of the talk. And since we are in Indonesia, specifically in Semarang, we have to do this the Indonesian way. So first I will give you an introduction in which I want to express my acknowledgements, my thanks, specifically to Universitas Diponegoro in Semarang, who organized this conference. My mother has was born in Semarang, so I have a special place in my heart for Semarang. And additionally, I want to thank Dr. Budi Warsito for organizing this conference and giving me the honor to be part of it. Right. I realized that my contribution is slightly different from the others, and therefore I intend to explain as much as possible. So I'm going to talk about folklore, and then specifically about folklore after COVID-19. We have a few theoretical preliminaries that I will explain, and then I want to talk with you as researchers about the folklore documentation triangle. And Makuva language and culture will be the case study. So it's about language. I'm a linguist, and that's actually the explanation, but what I'm going to talk about applies to folklore studies in general. I have to mention a Fataluku language policy, which is the majority language in the region where Makuva is found. I want to talk with you about culture concealment, and then in the end we have an epilogue in which I might devise with you to deal with folklore research after COVID-19. Okay. What is the problem of folklore after COVID-19? First of all, we want to have a general definition. So my suggestion is, let's interpret folklore, which is actually an English word, the law, the folk, as traditional knowledge that is orally transmitted. And this is specifically valid in Indonesia, where I also have Indonesian backgrounds, where it's very obvious that when it is about culture and tradition, we depend on our elders. So this is actually a photograph of a film in the Netherlands about Moluccan descendants who very much depend on any folkloristic knowledge. If you don't have your grandparents anymore, you lose access to your own culture, right? So folklore, we already said that. So the term that I use in Indonesia is lokavija, which is Sanskrit, and we would devise three types. We would have folk culture, loka budaya, of folk behavior, loka prata, and loka swara, which is actually the field where I'm in, oral traditions. I want to talk with you about oral traditions research and how that actually fits within folklore, and what do you do if a community feels uncomfortable about its own oral traditions. First of all, we're talking about folklore in Indonesia. We have to mention that because of the COVID-19 phenomenon, we had in Indonesia this mandatory vaccination. We had that also in the Netherlands, the vaccination thing, but it was not mandatory. So we in the Netherlands, we have people who were not vaccinated. And specifically for Indonesia, we have this pemberlakuan pembatasan kegiatan masyarakat, this community activities restrictions enforcement, which is very important in that if you deal with oral traditions, you could no longer, for example, have a wayang performance because it was no longer possible because of the distance between people, or a dancing phenomenon or whatever, right? Now this is going to disappear, and how does it look then? In order to explain the phenomenon to you, I want to take you to East Timor, to Timor-Leste. It became independent in 2002, and I want to talk with you about the Makuva community. So East Timor, that's the eastern part of the island of Timor. And if we take another look, the Makuva community lives in the extreme east. And the problem is for us outsiders that we will not be able to find them because they tend to hide themselves for a certain reason. Okay. Now, what is this folklore documentation triangle? So if you want to do research, you want to document, first of all, you of course have a researcher who needs to do that, who connects to a certain community that has a phenomenon that we want to study. But this community is part of a nation, and the nation there's also links back to research, which means the researcher wants to do research in the community. The researcher needs to take into consideration the rules that apply in a nation. Can be anything. Can be folklore, so ways of behavior, certain things you should not do. It can also be regulated by law. Certain things are not possible. This is what you have to do. Okay. So in this case, we're going to research in the Makuva community. The nation is Timor-Leste then, and researcher, that's me, Honor. Let's take a look how that looks like. So let's take a look from the viewpoint of the researcher. So you have two types of researchers. You have an outsider and you have an insider. So what's the difference? Outsiders usually are academic researchers, whereas insiders are local researchers who are member of the community, for example. Outsider can be a PhD student or a postdoc, and indeed the insider can be a community member or a native speaker, something like that. Sometimes the person can be academic as well, but that is not necessary. It can be anyone. But it has an effect on the research funding. So if you're academic, then and you're an outsider, then it's about language, for example, endangered languages program, for example, that used to be in London, but now it moved to Germany, as far as I know. We have a Volkswagen Stiftung, that is a German fund, and we have the NWO, Endangered Languages Fund, in the Netherlands. You can apply there for funding, but you need to be an academic. You need to be supported by your university. Whereas if you're an insider, and we're dealing with these, you could go to Timor-Leste Nippon Cultural Center, who has money for you to do research there, or to the Endangered Languages Fund in the United States, or to the FAIL, to the Foundation for Endangered Languages in London as well. So we have opportunities, but we have to keep in mind that specifically for the outsider, archiving and documentation must be done according to the funder's requirements. And for insiders, protection of a language or a cultural expression or its revival depends on the community's perceptions. And we will see that what the insiders or what the community wants is not always the same as what an outsider funder wants. So, for example, in my research, what I did, I had outsider researchers. So you can see to the left, postdoc Ruben Stoel, who went to Los Palos, in Lauteng to teach students there how to use the equipment, whereas they would be sent off into the field to make recordings, whereas I would work with insiders, older people, and discuss with them how to collect material. And the insiders would have much more access than the outsiders. Okay. So what about the national stakeholder then? Well, the state, so we saw that ONA was working in Timor-Leste with the Makuva community. That was the idea. But as you can see, ONA, they didn't like that name in East Timor. It was not easy to pronounce, specifically not my family name, Van Engelenhoven. So I use a different name there. I referred with my grandfather's name, Thomas. And I said I would work with the Fataluku language, the majority language of the region, and together with the INL, which is the Instituto Nacional de Linguística, that is comparable to LIPI in Indonesia. So that is a government body who controls research. Okay, but I didn't mention Makuba then. That had a reason. Why? Because in those days, there was this government decree in the first article. It said, for example, there was this orthographical standard, because this is just 2 years after the independence. And Article 4 would tell us what the role was of the National Institute of Linguistics. So Article 1 says the orthographical standard for Tetum, as developed by the National Institute of Linguistics at the National University of East Timor, is hereby adopted. So there was a specific way of writing Tetum, just as there's a specific way of writing. And then the Institute must develop the scientific activities necessary to the preservation and protection of the other national languages, specifically devising orthographical standards for each of them. So it was not so that outsiders just could do what they wanted. They had to follow the rules of the Institute. And the Institute thought, like, we want to introduce Tetum as a co-official language next to Portuguese, but we don't know how to write it. Therefore, all the teachers during the Indonesian period had to go back to school to learn how to use the newly devised spelling. That was more important than anything else. So research on Makuba was not really possible for them. So, but what about the Makuva community then as stakeholder? Didn't you do any research on Makuva because the INL blocked it? Yes, I did. So on the national level, my name was Thomas, was a member of the Institute, and I worked on Fataluku. I also did that. But on the lower level, my name would be Sorot Malay, which is the name the Makuva community gave to me because my ancestors in olden times, medical times, also stayed there. So I was not seen as a foreigner so much, but as a community member. And I would work with the royal clan Malekirat. They were the ones to determine what kind of research I was allowed to do. So first, to get there, I give you some background information. So the story goes, mythic story goes that in the beginning of time, there was only one clan called Malekirat. They lived in the whole region in green. And they were culturally not very much developed. It was in the beginning of time, right? So they lived in sheds. There was nothing special. But on a certain moment, people, immigrants came from the West a long time ago. They came, for example, the Latulo clan, they came walking from the West. It's very important to mention this, that they came walking. Do we have evidence? No, we don't really have evidence. This is folklore. They came walking from the West. Now we know they came from Alor and Bandar. But they brought along culture like this type of houses. And they were allowed by the Katiratu people to live in Lauteng. The message went around, so there was this other clan called Chailoro who came from Maluku with a boat. So they also went to the king and they said, so if Latulo can stay here, can we stay here as well? And the king was not very fearful, said, well, okay, you can do that. But the Latulo people did not like that. So they would go around and pacify the entire region and force everyone to learn their language, which is called Fataluku. Fataluku means the correct language. It's a Papuan language. So only in the region where the Chailoro people stayed, you could find this Makuva language, the original language that was spoken in the beginning. And that language is an Ausonesian language and is related to Indonesia. Okay. You can imagine that this gave a problem. So to survive, if they would just fight with the Latulo people, with the red people, they would lose. So the only option that remained, which is a cultural option in Southwest Maluku and in the tip of East Timor, is culture concealment. Just hide your culture. Therefore, when foreigners go or outsiders go to Lauteng, they think everyone is a Fataluku, but that is not. So how do we deal then with this Makuva community? Well, we had the inside world and an outside world. And in the inside world, this Makuva language is sacred because that language is related to your identity. You cannot just play around to the language. In Indonesia as well, because Javanese are also very, very sensitive about their language. They love their language. They look up to their language, and it's part of Javanese culture. It applies to many languages. Buginese is the same, Batak also. In the outside world, you would use a language to communicate with. That would be Fataluku. In Indonesia, the language to communicate with, that is Indonesian, right? But each ethnic group has its own language. So, are we going to a new strategy then? I'm already at the end of my talk. We saw that me as a researcher owner, I would work in Timor-Leste with the Makuva people, but it was very difficult to get there. So as a researcher, I would record whatever and then archive that in open space where it could be accessed. That's what the funder wanted. So I would go to Sydney or to London or to Nijmegen, and everyone could access the material that I could achieve thanks to fund. I would provide books with information about language and culture, and all researchers would be able to assess that, then research it. However, in the INL, the National Institute of Linguistics thought differently. They were more interested in this Fataluku language, which is the fourth language of the nation, and wanted me, so there I'm called Thomas, to devise, for example, an orthography for it and to standardize this Fataluku language. They were more interested in Tetun dictionaries, so Tetun, Fataluku, Tetun, and the grammars, as I said. And they wanted to have school books in Fataluku that would facilitate the introduction of Tetun. Right. But we already saw that if you want to use Fataluku as a language for school, you first have to teach the teachers this language. So it was a problem. Then how does this work for the Makuvas themselves? Well, I'm no longer Thomas there, but they call me Sorot Malay. And I would have a relation with the royal clan Maliki Ratu in order to deal with the Makuva folklore. Now, what would they say? They would say, well, any recording that you make and film footage You can put that on the internet, but with restricted access. We don't want everyone to be able to read it. So they would go against what the international funder would say. Only certain people are allowed to it. What? Who? Well, Makuvas themselves, of course. Because we want to manage our culture, but that can only be done by certain appointed people, not everyone. We need to have someone who knows, who is an academic, who knows how to deal with that, but who is not going to be a problem in that the person is going to give away our secrets. And finally, we want you, Sorot Malay, to tell us how to deal with this. And it must be oral. Don't write it down because we cannot read in any language, specifically not in Makuva. In other words, what is the conclusion then that I would like to mention? Each corner of the documentation triangle turns out to have its own agenda. The researchers, so we as researchers, we need to find a way that combines as much as possible all the interests. So I wanted to work on Makuva, but in order to be able to do that, I had to work on Fataluku as well. If I would work on Fataluku, I was allowed to do some Makuva research. But nevertheless, the interest of the community should always have priority. So I do have a lot of material, but a lot of this cannot be used for academic purposes simply because the community would consider that sacred, or if you would speak in terlalu panas, it would be too hot to deal with. Okay, I think, yes, this is my contribution. Kaliwete, as they say in Makuva. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, let me know. Can be in English, can be Indonesian, as you wish. And I promise I will answer them to you in writing. And once again, I want to thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you very much for Dr. Aun van Engelenhoven for his video presentation. Kawilete, did I spell it right? Because it's thank you in the Makuva language. Yeah. So Dr. Aun van Engelenhoven has presented folklore, his folklore research, yeah, in East Timor after the COVID-19 pandemic, after the community activities restriction enforcement has been taken off, and he talked about mainly on the case of Makufa, which is the language of people in Timor-Leste, folklore, yeah, the people in the Timor-Leste. And what is folklore? Folklore is, according to him, is a traditional knowledge that is orally transmitted. And it's very interesting that Dr. Engelenhoven used the Indonesian terms for this folklore is Lokavidya. Yeah, I just know about this because linguistics is not my focus of study. And there is a difference also on folk culture, which is Loka Budaya. Folk behavior is Loka Prata, and oral tradition is Loka Swara. So folklore is Loka Vidya, and his research is mainly on Lokavidya, on folklore. And he did research in East Timor, and he very interesting that he used the triangles, yeah, to present the result of his research. which is he is the researcher, but as a outsider researcher, yeah, as academic researcher. But he also make use the help of the local researchers, which are Thomas, I think his name is. Another one is Sorot Malay. Did I spell it right? Yeah, hopefully. And his research is, his presentation is on the inside world, when we divide it inside and then the outside world. And the inside world is in terms of language. What is language? Language is very important because it's the identity of the people. It's something sacred. Yeah, and the Makuva language is can be categorized into endangered language. Yeah, in environment we talk about endangered species. Yeah, but since in the environment we have the triangle of ecology, economy, and social. So Dr. Engelenhoven talks more about social aspects of this, and especially on the linguistic aspect. And Makuva is categorized into endangered language. Yeah, language that is threatened to be disappeared if there is no effort to preserve. So in his conclusion, he said that there is should be a new strategy, you know, for keeping this language and this the folklore to still alive, and such as the documentation triangle, yeah, and each aspect has its own focus, and then the researcher, which is him, needs to find a way that combines as much as possible all interests. But the most important thing is the interest of the community, yeah, which has given priority. And it's very interesting at the end of the presentation. In the conclusion, he shows pictures of the three men using traditional material, yeah, and it's very beautifully knitted. And that's the end of his presentation. And Dr. Engelenhoven opens questions and answer, and not only in English, but it's also open in Bahasa Indonesia because his mother was born in Semarang. That's why he has such a interesting intact with this city. Okay, thank you very much. Again, Dr. Engelenhoven. And now we come to the third presenter of our session. The third session is we're going to present Professor Dr. Tri Retnaningsih Supropawati, MAPPSC. She is a lecturer at the Department of Biology, Faculty of Science and Mathematics, Universitas Diponegoro. Now she is the Vice Dean for Resources and Innovation, School of Postgraduate Studies, Universitas Diponegoro. And her education, her bachelor degree was in biology at Gajah Mada University. And then her master is on Master of Applied Science, Environmental Science from the University of Western Sydney, Australia. And then her PhD is in Environmental Science at Gajah Mada University. Her area of interest covers on water quality, microalgae as bioindicator, and FICO remediator. And then very interesting that she has publication on the number of 58, yeah, in the reputable international journals. And she has very active in many aspects, yeah, such as expert for Ministry of Environment and Forestry since 2011. And then she has research collaboration with Federation University Australia since 2009. And then she is now in research collaboration with UNSTO, Australian Nuclear for Science and Technology Organization, until this year, 2022. And then she is still having research collaboration with Institute of Geological Science, Police Academy of Science. And she, very interesting, she got the title of Sri Kandi Sungai Indonesia, chapter Semarang. Yeah, that's because her active participation in the river or sungai activities. And that she has got research collaborations on post mining with Bangor University, Aberystwyth University, UK, North Carolina, and Biotrop, and with other universities in Indonesia, such as ITB, Universitas Brawijaya, and PTBA. Yeah, and her other experiences is she is now head of CNET at the Faculty of Science and Mathematics until 2025. And she was before headmaster program of biology at Undip 2013 and until 2015. And then secretary, before that is secretary master program in biology. So she has many experiences that I'm sure she will share interestingly in her presentation, which is entitled Toward Water Security and Climate Resilience in Indonesia. Professor Suprabhawati, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Hartuti. Okay, I will open my mask. I will share my PowerPoint. Okay. See my PowerPoint? Okay, and I hope my sound is clear enough. Okay. Okay, so as mentioned before that I will discuss and share with you about toward water security and climate resilience in Indonesia. And climate change is already happened in industrial revolutions, and this is actually like a simulations, but I think it will be take time to open it, and then just to show you that the trend of increasing temperatures had been started during 80s until now. And then of course, the climate change intensifies water insecurity, especially increasing variability of water supply. And the other things that I will also mention is how water security is about managing risk across local to regional scales. Okay. Okay. As an impact of climate change, there were seawater intrusions and then decreased fisheries, increased disease, flood, and then in some places it is a drought and then shortage of water and food and other impacted. Why we have to caution? Because Indonesia as an island countries with more than 70,000 islands. And we also have the second longest coastal line after Canada. And more than 65% of populations in Indonesia live in a coastal area. And the water availability influenced by climate changes that impacted on the agriculture, livestock, and fisheries. That is why the mitigations and adaptations related to the climate change has to be done. And talking about climate change on the lake, for examples, it is very influenced because whenever in the dry seasons, the evaporation is higher than precipitations, so the water level of the lake or aquatic ecosystem will be reduced, and will be impacted in the increasing of high salinity, and in the wet season, whenever the precipitations higher than evaporations, there will be of course low salinity. So this was very able to be reconstruct. Later on, I will discuss it using the fossils preserved in the sediment. So the other keyword is water security. That is the capacity of populations to safeguard sustainable access to adequate quantities and acceptable water quality for sustaining livelihood and human well-being, and then for socio-economic development, for ensuring against waterborne pollutions and water-related disaster, and of course for preserving ecosystem in climate of peace and political stability. And what have to be done related water security and climate resilience development is understand the problems and then identify the appraisal of option, deliver solutions, and then monitor and move forward. So all of us in our part able to contribute it in the water security and climate resilience development. And this is the climate vulnerability maps in Southeast Asia, including in Indonesia. See that in the red color, there are many parts, especially in Java and in the Nusa Tenggara, Bali. And this climate vulnerability is related to the water availability in Indonesia. Okay. And then just have a look in Java, for example, the water availability is 118 millions per year, and then the demand is 117. See, the availability is 98%, almost 99%. And then the demand, of course, 100%. But in Bali and Nusa Tenggara, the demand is higher than the availability, and it is predicted that this condition will be occurs until 2030. So we have to do something related to this. We have many inland waters, some of them lakes, and then we have more than 1,050 lakes, including big lake and small lake that accommodate more than 5 kilometers cubic of waters, and then contributed 72% of the total Indonesia surface water. Have total capacity more than 2,160 megawatt for electricity, especially for priority lake. We have 15 priority lakes in Indonesia that focus the program in the priority at the first. And then the other things is that in Indonesia, we have 4th largest number of freshwater species in the world after Brazil, China, and USA. And the problem is that we have sustainability problem related to the water quality, sedimentation, eutrophications, and of course, threat of biodiversity. And see that globally also in Indonesia, we have how lakes have an important water resources, not only as an ecosystem, but also landscape, because the lake, for example, provide wide range of ecosystem services, and then play a positive roles as an adaptation measure to climate change. And then if we have a look internationally, that all people depend on the fresh water, but the availability is undertreated, that degraded not only in the quality but also the quantity. So we have to sustain our lake, and the sustainable lake management. Indonesia have a success story. Whenever have a success, make a resolution in the UNEA last March that sustainable lake management have to be adapted, and then that is become one global of UNEP and have to be applied. I think not only in Indonesia but also in the world. Why I call that this is the success story for Indonesia, that able to bring the resolutions in the United Nations, because since 2011 we Indonesia already developed priority lakes that I mentioned before, 15 lakes, and then formulations of integrated lake management plan that integrate in the local and national development plans, and then implementations of integrated program, and then establish of presidential decree on safe priority lake. This is that another countries learn from Indonesia, and that we have a presidential decree related to the safe priority lakes. And then one other things is enhancing global concern and action on the lake conservation and rehabilitation. So what they have done, this is the problems of Indonesian lake, but also I think most of lake have these problems, and this is the functions of the lake, considering the characteristic services provided, and then the conditions and create to the lake management. So it needs to be addressed the sustainable manner, that Apple started with the protect and conserve as well as restore sustainable lake, and then integrated management plan, community engagement, and then stakeholder involvement, research, science policy linkage database. This is my parts, and then international networking and collaborations like ICENIS today. And what happened is that whenever we integrated management lake, not only in the lake itself as a water body, monitoring and then standard water quality management, as well as controlling pollutions and law enforcement, but the most important is it's also require the catchment management that influence the lake quantity and quality. And okay, so for sustaining management lake, it has to be focused on the water quality, especially on the nutrient loading and eutrophications, and then the quality of the lake relation to the human activities in the lake and watershed, and then the impact of invasive organisms, factor associated with fishing quality, and then aesthetic factor, and as well as spiritual values. And this is also related ecosystem approach that also one of them focus on the water use patterns. Okay. Okay, I will try in my my expertise on paleolimnology, how paleolimnology able to contribute it for lake management. Actually, at the end, not only for the lake, but also for another aquatic ecosystem. So paleolimnology is the study of freshwater using the physical, chemical, and biological information preserved in the sediment to reconstruct past conditions sedimentation as a basis to develop lake management. So we collect the sediment sample from the lake, and then we have sediment samples like this one, and then analyze for physical, chemical, and biological. See, whenever we have the data with the length of study less than 1 year, usually we only got the small just like a monitoring activities. But whenever we have long period data like this one, we able to have a look the trend what happened in the lake. So that is the paleolimnology done. And if we only take, for example, within 10 years, the trend is very different whenever compared to the long-term data. So the applications of paleolimnological approach for ecosystem management and conservation is what is the legacy of past long-term changes for ecosystem functions related to the resilience capacity, and then baseline and reference conditions, and then is that any changes and in what scale. So in this part, we able to analyze the direction of changes, extent of the changes, timing of change, and then the driver and mechanism, as well as feedback related to the process of the changes. And for the ecosystem, the implications, of course, it will be related to the ecosystem services, biodiversity, risk, and etc. So for me, find the future from the past means that the future we might be able to develop adaptations and mitigations management from the past by the identifications and what happened in the past, prediction in the future, and then plan what have to do related to the conditions. So paleolimnology for environmental management is how were the conditions before the disturbance, and how is the range of natural variability, the condition change, any evidence of from human activities, or how much improvement can be targeted from this management. Okay, so I will try more focus to the project that we already have. So whenever we already have a sediment samples from the lake or other aquatic ecosystem, what we can do is chronostratigraphy approach, that is determine when the sediment, for example, in this layer, when it is sedimented, and then for biostratigraphy related to the fossils that able to be found in every layers in this sediment, and then lithostratigraphy, like the Prof. Yesterday mentions about the eye tracks, like a scan of sediment samples that able to analyze lithostratigraphy and talking about what happened in the past. So why paleolimnology is important? Because it's still limited studies, and then one of a priority program at Germadan, and then the paradigm water management also need this approach. And the more important is that 40% of world lakes are in tropical area, and we have to responsible about this. Okay. And this is what we already done in Rawapening. We already reconstruct what happened in Rawapening, and this condition, the hypereutrophic and eutrophic conditions in Rawapening had been occurred since 1980s. Why? Because in 1970, Indonesia have agriculture intensification programs that after 10 years one of them using fertilizers impacted the lake itself, and until now the eutrophication had induced the water hyacinth growth. And then the other problems is that during dry seasons, the water level reduced 170 centimeters and with the length of 2 kilometers. And I try to make together between the rainfall data during 1968 and then the fossil data of diatoms, and there is a relations between the rainfall and the diatoms data. And this is the ecological of Rawapening, that the water hyacinth covered almost 70% in 2005. And this is the conditions 2 years ago, and this also regulations related the border of Rawapening. And the water hyacinth harvesting done every year. This is before harvesting, and then this is after harvesting. One thing that have to be put into account is related to the water hyacinth growth, because in Rawapening, one water hyacinth will be doubled within 28 days. If compared to India, it is twice faster if compare also to other place. And then I would like to also to share with our project at Dieng. At the beginning of 90s, there were 28 telaga. Telaga means small lakes in Dieng, and then reduced into 14 lakes in 81. And then in 2004, 10, but now it just remain 8 lakes. And then this is the small lake in Dieng Plateau, and we already have the data related to those lakes. And just try to compare. Thank you, Prof. Heng, for providing with the old picture of Telaga Warna and Pengilon. And this is that Prof. Heng have a collections of this photo in the beginning of 90s, and then this one, these conditions. And what happened is that we collected 150 and 160 from Warna Lakes, and then in the 24 centimeters in the upper sediment, it has already sedimented more than 100 years ago, and based on the fossils preserved in the sediment, human activities have impacted on the Warna Lake as well as in Pengilon Lake, because in Warna pH is very low and in Pengilon it is varying. Why? Because in the dry season like this time, the water from Warna will be enter to the Pengilon because there are many pumps in Pengilon lakes, and that is why the pH of Pengilons tend to increase. And we also already have the data, the dating that in the 210 centimeter sediment, it is preserved about more than 13,000 pp. And this is also another heavy metals that we already have from those lake. And the problem not only in Warna but also in other lake in Dieng is there are many pumps, especially during dry seasons. And I already calculated 200 liter per minute pump from the lakes for irrigations. And okay, so this is also the conditions in the wet seasons, and then in the dry seasons the water is reduced very sharply. Of course, it is also influence the water quality. And then this is another examples again. Prof. Heng helped me, and then with this photograph, and this is the conditions 2 years ago. Last 2 weeks ago, we went there again, and the condition is still similar. And just have a look that the Chepong Lake, there is a problem of sedimentation, erosions that influence the water quantity. And what happened is in the catchment area, all the hills is converted into the potatoes plantations. So that is why they need the water for irrigations. So from Chepong Lake, we have more than 230 centimeter sediment cores, and then we already finished with the diatom analysis, and this is the trend of the diatoms. And we still waiting the chronostratigraphy data, when these layers, for example, sedimented, and then we might be able to reconstruct the past conditions. And the other things, it is in Palekambang. Palekambang is next to Arjuna. And this conditions is also just remind like this one. At the beginning, it is about 12 hectares, but now it is less than 5 hectares, and just like this one. But the water depth is more than 10 meters. Whenever we stand in here, see that we stand below the water. And 2 weeks ago, whenever we take another samples in here, the water content below these grasses is 3 meters. And this is our activities in the Palekambang, almost similar with the problems. And our top scorer for sediment cores is from Palekambang, because we have more than 4 meters sediment cores taken from Palekambang. And this is the history what happened in Palekambang, because since 1994 there were great increase agriculture related to the potatoes. And then on the other hand, there is eruption histories in in Dieng, and this catchment management, and then in the plateau itself, combining and then influence the water quality as well as the water quantity. Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is the in Central Java, and this is in Bedono. It is only 30 less than 30 kilometers from Semarang. So whenever we would like to reach this house, we have to work in here, especially in the water level, high water level. Sometimes it is almost here, and this mosque since last fasting period this year, it's already flooded every day, and like this one. And this is in the back of the school, and we try to collect the data from this part. And what we do is what we already did is scoring in the Semarang, but in Bedono we just started to collect the samples. But based on the pollen and diatom evidence, the water inundations indeed already in Semarang, happen in Semarang and Demak. And for mitigation climate change, this is in Rembang, that the stock carbon in mangrove in Rembang, that is the repoisations in 2070, in between 58 until 73% of sediment carbon stock contributed to the carbon stock in the ecosystem, means that mangrove ecosystem contributed more whenever we try to mitigate climate change. So in the end, I just want to say that we need water, but water does not need us. So save water for life, starting from ourselves. Thank you. Bu Hartuti.
Thank you very much for Professor Suprapawati, which has been interestingly present her paper on toward water security and climate resilience in Indonesia, which is very much the topic of this conference. And she talked about in which climate change has been impacting water condition in Indonesia and has decreased rainfall. And after that, decrease also raw water resources, in which actually water is very, very important for human being, for drinking and for agricultural purposes. And the island of Java, Bali, and Nusa Tenggara face water scarcity. Yeah, especially because these places are very heavily populated. So water resource management should be an early focus for adaptation of climate change. And water security has been also developed as a major theoretical framework in environmental governance and resource management. There have been some actions to achieve water security which have been developed, such as um, protecting vulnerable water systems, mitigating the impacts of water-related hazards, such as floods and droughts, safeguarding access to water functions and services, and also managing water resources in an integrated and equitable manner. And her Professor Suprabhawati's research mostly on sustainable lake management. And her focus is on paleolimnology, which is the study of inland water that use the physical, chemical, and biological information preserved in the sediment to reconstruct past environmental changes as a base to develop sustainable lake management. And she has presented research in Rawapening Lake, which is very close to this Semarang city, and also Pangilon, and what is the name of the other lake? Pangilon and Warna lakes in Dieng. Yeah, and it's very interesting. In Indonesia, we have more than 1,500 lakes, but the conditions of these lakes are endangered. Yeah, with Professor Hong, we have talked about endangered food, and then with Dr. England Hoven, we have talked about endangered languages, and now Professor Suprabhawati talked about endangered water. Yeah, so with the increasing population, we have been facing many threats, yeah, of the shortages of food, water, and also in terms of social, it's also endangered languages. Yeah, and in Dieng, she said that in 1927 there were 28 lakes, but now in 2010 only 8 lakes. But probably now in 2022 the number of lakes has been decreasing, and of course not only the number but the condition, maybe the acreage of the lakes, and then the amount of water, yeah, in the lakes, because such as in Dieng, there has been an extensively and intensively also pumping of water taken from the lakes to water the agricultural area around the lakes. And there are also problems of sedimentation, erosion, and also rotten potatoes, which have been taken into the lake. And in Rawapening, the problem is mostly on the water hyacinth, which doubled, yeah, in every 28 days. So this lake, the Rawapening, and then the lakes Tragawarna and Pangulon and Dieng are facing serious problems. Not only the lake, but also our coastal areas. Yeah, like in the city of Semarang, because we have oceans. Yeah, we are facing Java Ocean, and there's also a problem of inundation and also the problem of land subsidence, which then destroy houses and agricultural areas around the area. So these three presenters have been presenting very interesting topics, which I'm sure the audience will have many questions, and already actually some questions which have been written in the chat, in the chat, and some of the questions from the audience, have been answered by the presenters, but there are some other questions which are still waiting for the answers. We are so sorry that the questions for Dr. Engelenhoven is not going to be answered right away, right now, because it's still very early in the morning, in the Netherlands. So Dr. Engelenhoven is not joining us now, but he's ready to answer questions both in English or in Bahasa Indonesia. We are going to pass the questions to him, and he's going to answer the questions to you, and the committee is going to manage these. So the two speakers are ready to answer your questions right away, which is from by Dr. Lee Lam Hong, Professor Dr. Lee Lam Hong, Professor and Professor Tri Ratnasing Suprabhawati. And I'm going to read the questions. The first question to Professor Lee Lam Hong is from Dr. Fuad Muhammad of Undip, Master's Program of Environmental Science, on what is the role of artificial intelligence in livestock cultivation and management, such as feeding, monitoring health, and to harvesting. And Professor Hong has answered then in livestock farming, AI can be used in making predictions based on the behavior and conditions of the animals. So this AI can provide preventative care taking to the animals and to prevent and reduce mortality. And besides, the movement of the livestock can also be monitored, to obtain the farmers will know the characteristics of the herd behavior of the animals in the farm. So in that way, the management of the livestock will be able to be done more efficiently. And thank you for Mr. Rubianto Juni Pribadi, who also have given questions to Professor Hong. How about the application of AI to early warning system? And Professor Hong has answered that based on the data collected from various sensors such as thermometer, accelerometer, microphone, etc., the behavior of the animals can be monitored. So if there is any abnormal behavior detected from a particular animal, the early warning system can be triggered, and preventive care taking can be applied to avoid health problems, which may lead to the death of the animal or spread of illness. So in this way, that the sustainability of the livestock farming is maintained. And another question from Yesi Clara. Using AI in agriculture is the use of AI in agriculture is amazing because it can save food stock during disasters such as droughts. But however, will the price of the product can be able to compete with conventional agriculture? Because we know that the application of AI must be very expensive, because it's a modern technology. Because if the price of the agricultural product is much higher, people will not be able to buy it. So Professor Hong answered that the ROI for the investment is one of the main issues that stops farmers to transform yeah, from conventional to AI, yeah. So subsidiaries and financial support from the government agencies will be very helpful at early stage. But however, in the long run, definitely the investment will lead to better productivity, hence better revenue also. Yeah, because maybe with the development of the technology, then things will be get better. Yeah, furthermore, the cost of smart machines and modern computing infrastructures have been made more affordable nowadays. Yeah. Professor Hong, are you going to give more additional comments on this?
Yeah, of course, yes. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Suti. Okay, so actually, if the cost of the agriculture activities is concerned, right? No doubt, if we want to transform from a conventional way that we do farming to the modern way by using technologies, definitely there will be some cost incurred, and then the cost will not be small. And this happen in manufacturing industry as well, because when we are concerning about industry revolution, right? For example, in back in Industrial Revolution One, so we use steam engine. Then Industrial Revolution Two, we use electric motors, and then Industrial Revolution Three, we use some simple computers like the electronics. All right. So all these incur costs. But from the experience that we have observed from the manufacturing sectors, I think the investment will somehow returns the benefits to the targeted sectors. All right, like in the manufacturing sectors, you see, even though people have transformed their factories to become automated, all right, and of course we need to put in a lot of money upfront, but when we consider it in the long run, so definitely we will get back the return of our investment. So because another thing is since now we have been suffering from food insecurity, right? So it is definitely worth it for us to put attention and investment into food production. So not to worry about the cost at the beginning stage. In the long run, definitely it helps to increase the productivity and then also the quality. And with that, the cost will go down eventually. So yeah, thank you. That's my explanation in this regard.
Okay, thank you very much. There are still many other questions from our audience. And the questions from Javier Dahavi. Yeah, in the next revolution, Industry 5.0, how widespread is the impact of AI to replace human work? Yeah, maybe you're going to give more explanation on this, Professor?
Yeah, of course, yes. This is a very interesting question, actually. So, if the question mentioned about Industry 4.0, I will say the question is valid because why? Because the main objective of Industry 4.0 is about to replace human with machine. All right. Whereas throughout the years of the implementation and the implementation of Industry 4.0, we can see it. We can see the result is not really good for the past 10 years, especially in developing countries, because as we can see, even in Malaysia, like also in Indonesia, I think we all agree that we are still in the stage of something like Industry 2.5. That means we use electric powered machines, but still we need a lot of human labor with some automation and computerization with very minimal electronic components in our manufacturing sectors. So Industry 4 is meant to replace humans by using machines, but the reason is we can see the problem that Industry 4 is not widely implemented because of the performance. Without having an extensive and comprehensive knowledge, which can be transformed into machine understandable format. So it is very difficult for us to deploy a system, a computerized system with very good performance, which will fulfill the expectation of all the parties. So with that, because of, I wouldn't say it's a failure, but it is a shortcoming of Industry 4.0. That is why recently Industry 5.0 come into the picture to integrate, okay, or to introduce back the human intelligence to facilitate the how to say, the capability or the so-called the power of the machine. So to answer this question, Industry 5.0, how widespread is the impact of AI? So actually the impact of AI will be reduced. Okay, so will be reduced, and then the impact of human intelligence will be introduced back to the framework to make the system, to make the entire approach better. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's very interesting. Yeah. One of the questions from Hafwi. Yeah. This is something that is in the fear of many people, that Industry 5.0 is not meant as people are worried that this Industry 5.0 is going to replace human works. Yeah, but Professor Hong's answer has given answers to this, that it's actually it is meant to having human hands and minds to work together. Yeah, with the industrial revolution of 5.0. That's very interesting. Okay, I think that the questions from Professor Hong has been answered. Yeah, to have we, and then a question by Ayuning Anggraita. Yeah, are you going to give any more explanation on this, on the introduction and implementation of AI and agriculture?
Yeah, so yeah, of course, it is very interesting to explore into this area. So basically, actually, we have seen a lot of implementation of digitalization, computerization, and of course, in the modern technology perspective, is the AI in manufacturing. So you see, manufacturing is a production floor to create various products. All right, and then since that is the case, we have been thinking manufacturing is meant to create products, and agriculture is meant to create the raw materials of food. All right, so even though products is all these products are very important in our daily life, but the basic needs is still food. Okay, without, like for example, without computers, without handphones, without even like for example some nice furnitures, I believe we all can still survive. Okay, at a very basic level, but without food, it is very difficult for us to survive, so-called. All right, so of course, people have been thinking, why is it there is the approaches or the frameworks of using computers and digital technology, which has been implemented since a few tens of years ago, but they do not really look into how to make the agriculture more productive or better by using the similar technologies. So I think this is the right time for us to look into it, because previously I think we do not feel the pain of food insecurity, but nowadays, after the pandemic, after the when we see the conflict or between the political conflicts between some of the countries, has created quite a big negative impact to our food supply and also the logistics. So I think it is the right time for us to start looking into this. And in fact, it is not really difficult to make it happen. Okay, so we have a lot of experience in introducing or implementing computing and digital technologies in manufacturing. So with some creativity and innovation, I think we would be able to make the same thing happen in agriculture, to make the productivity and quality of the agriculture sector better.
Okay, thank you very much. So Professor Hong has been given explanations on the use of AI for agricultural industry, for livestock industry and things like that. and that's the solutions for food shortage for a great number of people. Yeah, but during the COVID, during the COVID, in terms of household, we stayed at the house in a long time, so we like to have small farming, household farming. Yeah, like we plant vegetables.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
I think the combinations of the big industry and the household activities is also important for food reliance. Yeah, in terms of food reliance. Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you very much for Professor Hong, which has answered questions from our audience. Now we invite Professor Tri to answer the questions from the audience.
Okay, thank you, Bu Artuti. The first question is come up from Pak Prayuda, that does the siltations in the river bank bother salinity in the estuary? Yes, it is, because whenever based on our data, we collect just 2 months ago that the salinity in the estuaries is above 20, in some part almost about 30, and although there is a mangrove ecosystem there, but still it means that the effect from the coastal area from the sea is much more higher if compared to the fresh water itself. So what happened is in Indonesia, we have a national program related to the mangrove since several years ago, and it has impacted. Last year, I also have a program with Bu Hartuti at Bengkulu. We collect a lot of mangrove. We collect the data from a lot of mangrove ecosystem in Bengkulu city, and the interesting is some of the mangrove plant. It is more than 10 species in Bengkulu. It is under red list IUCN, and in Java, if we compare in Rembang, for example, it is about 5 species that in the red list IUCN, means that the diversity in Java, if compared to Bengkulu, it is below the diversity for mangrove, but still it has very important effect whenever the coastal area that have mangrove ecosystem if compared to the area that do not have mangrove ecosystem, because not only prevent the villages from the abrasion, but also for the ecosystem services. And for the governments of Central Java, for example, there was a governance decree that related to they call it kawasan ekonomi esensial, and in that decree it put it Pasar Bangi at Rembang that I share in my last PPTs as one of kawasan ekonomi essentials, especially for mangrove ecosystems. And then for Pak, the other questions is Pak Prasetyoko, that climate change itself do not directly influence the disappearing of small lakes at Dieng, no, but the problem is sedimentations and eutrophications, because some of the lakes are located in the middle of the hill with the high slope. And then during rainy seasons, the erosion sedimentations will come up and fill up the lake, and then some lakes just gone. That is what happened in Dieng. It is also what happened in Rawapening, and then that is why the program not only related to the sedimentations but also with the eutrophications, because eutrophications increasing the nutrient that entering to the lake will induce the uncontrolled water plants growing in that lake, and then the root system will trapping the sediment, and then the lake the lake bank will be developed into like in like a terrestrial, and then some local people plant the corns and then the paddies in that area, and that is what happened in our lakes, not only lakes actually, but also river. The similar problems occurs like that one. So the main problem is sedimentations and eutrophications. So that is the answer for Pak Priyo Setioko. Thank you, Bu Hartuti. Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much for the answers from Professor Tri Suprabhawati. Actually, according to the time, we only have 3 minutes left, so I'm going to give last comments to these sessions. Thank you very much for Professor Dr. Lee Lam Hong, Dr. ATP G. van Engelenhoven, and Professor Tri Ratnanisi Suprabhawati, MAPPSC, which have given very interesting presentation, and I'm sure have widened up our horizons on the topics of the conference today, when mostly on the aspects of ecology, the aspect of environment, and also in the aspect of social of the triangle of the environmental science. So thank you very much again for our speakers. Thank you very much for our audience, which have given interesting questions. And hopefully that all of the questions have been answered satisfactorily by all of the speakers. And as a moderator, I would like to say sorry for any inconvenience or mistakes that I have made during this session. And we should give applause to our speakers. Thank you very much again. So time is up. So I will return the sessions to the Master of Ceremonies. Thank you very much.
Thank you for our moderator, Dr. Hartuti, and respective speakers for delivering a well-organized discussion in this plenary session.
We would like to request our moderator and keynote speakers that are present for today's conference to turn the camera on or to come on the stage, because there will be a certificate presentation from the committees. The certificate would be presented by Dr. Budi Warsito as the chairman of the 7th ICENIS 2022 committee.
First, we would like to give speaker certificate to Professor Dr. Lee Lam Hong from Quest International University, Malaysia. Please turn your camera on, Professor.
Yeah, my camera is on.
Okay, operator, please pin Professor. And on my marks, please take the screenshot. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, please take the screenshot. Okay, done? Okay, thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
All right. Second, we would like to show speaker certificate for Dr. ATPG van Engelenhoven from Leiden University Institute of Area Studies, Netherlands. Okay, operator, please take a screenshot first. Okay, done. Next up.
Third, we would like to invite Professor Dr. Tri Ratnaningsi Suprabhawati MFSC from School of Postgraduate Studies, Diponegoro University, to come to the stage and receive the speaker's certificate. I also invite Dr. Budi Warsito as the chairman of the 7th ICENIS 2022 committee to give the certificate.
Thank you, Professor Tri Retnaringsi. And last but not least, oh, okay, last but not least, we would like to invite Dr. Hartuti Purnaweni as the moderator for today's plenary session to come into the stage and receive the moderator's certificate.
Once again, thank you for all speakers and moderator for today's plenary session.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Now that the main plenary session has finished, we will have a break session until 11:35 a.m. And we would like to inform to all participants that after the break session, we will enter the parallel session.
Before we jump into the parallel session, as matter of information for this session, participants will present the paper submitted for this conference in a group called class, categorized based on topics that will be presented and discussed. The topics included
1. Cultural and Environmental Development, code CED.
2. Information System, code IS.
3. Energy, code EN.
4. Epidemiology, code EP.
And 5. Environment, code ENV. The session will be led by a moderator in each class, and the list of classes have been on the abstract book. We would like to suggest all participants to join the separate Zoom meeting room soon after the break is over.
Please be informed that there will be a closing ceremony after this parallel session, so please come back to the main room after the session is over.
Thank you in advance. Have a nice break and best of luck.